So welcome to my first day on Sky. This is back on March 14th, 2018, and this is home space. Now what's happened is I actually went from the beginning to what was called Shores of Mana at the time, and balked out at Shores of Mana because of the krill. I was terrified of them, so I didn't want to do that. So I came back home, and this is our home space. And you can see we have level portals here. There's Valley of Triumph and Forest and Prairie. And the candles on them indicated how many things you'd found in the area. And then this was our friendship shrine. This was basically your leveling up friendship, which was kind of a neat idea back at the time. And so this kind of told you where you were, and you had these little things to do. You know, the more friend count, 7 of 10. I made 7 whole friends my first day. Then go over here, and you can see I already have my ponytail, so it must have been an early, cheap one to get. Friendship level, that's how many things you'd exchange between you and friends. Chat, high five, hug. Back then it was only chat, high five, and hug. That's all we had. Amount collectibles. Some of these never worked quite right. The numbers were never right. And this was unlocking more emotions and more cosmetics. So you leveled up with how much stuff you'd collected. As you can see, I already have my ponytail, and but that's about all I have so far of the look I eventually adopted. The mask was, again, early. Some of these things haven't changed much. The ponytail was early. That mask was early, one of the first ones you collected. And my very empty home space. I was just messing around here. And then I decided to go back to Isle, where I could try to record. I did not record the beginning. I was playing elsewhere, and screen record and all that stuff did not work very well back then on this iPad I was using. Screen recording was kind of wonky, and it was messed up. I was actually using Game Capture, which I now use for streaming. I was using it to record here. But the candles were how many things how many emotes you'd collected in the areas. And at the Valley of Triumph one, that's where you collected the piano. And you had to collect all 3 of the race emotes, and then you could collect the piano, something like that. And I did not record when that happened, but that's how and you didn't wear the piano. It was just something you did, and you moved your hands around in the air when you were playing it. There was no actual physical representation of it. But the on-screen keyboard was the same. And then here we have our invite shrines, which didn't work. We have our return shrine, which returns you to your place. And we have our friend candle space, which was nice. I really kind of missed that, lighting candles for friends. And they changed this. In this version, they grew a little bit. In other versions, they grew more as you opened friendship with these people. And then your daily candle you also had right there as well. There's a nice view of it. As you can see, I have Shores of Mana there. Vault, it would be next. I don't have Vault yet because I haven't been there yet because I can't get past Shores of Mana. It was called Shores of Mana. Now it's called Golden Wasteland. But that's where the krill were. And I said, nope. It took me a few more days before I got through Shores of Mana in order to get to Vault. And then a few more days before I actually tackled Eden. I noped out of that once at least as well. Okay, so now we're going to head on back to Isle. Unfortunately, I did not do. What happened is you would go through Isle to a certain point, then you would be teleported home, then you would resume the game, and go back to Isle, and I didn't do that in this. But here's the early story. And there was not a lot of music in these early versions of the game. Music was added later, so it was a lot of silence and a lot of just world noise rather than music. So this was my first aisle, at least the beginning part of it. Earlier than this, it was even a little more weird, apparently. This was actually a toned down version of what was before. I guess you used to see actual dead children bodies on the shoreline here. Now you just see you. And you started out dark. I do miss this gateway and all this. Telling me to turn the camera. Being very insistent, I do what it says. Get the bird to move. And here is where you would sit here, you would be teleported back home, and then you'd come back here if you returned, and then climb up to the temple, which I'm sad that I didn't do. But again, this is my first day playing. I don't know that I even understood to do that. So I missed having the boats here. And he went home to introduce you to home. And yeah, I did not know to resume game by returning. So we're going to head back to Prairie. Yeah, as I recall, it was a while before I understood to go to the return shrine to complete home, to complete aisle. Now this is our old Prairie entrance, and it's the same as the current Prairie entrance, kind of. Difference being this is a much smaller Prairie. And here's our little closet spaces. 4 hearts for couldn't even see what cape that was. There's some masks. I'm not sure where the hair came from. I really don't remember. Because everything was bought in kiosks. An early friend. In a blue cape. You can tell at that moment I went, I want! And then warp was 3, chat was 4. That was a very simple friendship tree back then. Hearts were easier to come by as well. A lot easier to come by. No previews of what you don't already have. And then there's these things that were never explained, never functional, of course, have gone away. You need others to help activate this. Under construction. It never functioned. It never did anything. There was a... There we go. Facebook kiosks, too. Facebook and whatever else other things these are. Never, again, never functioned. And then here's our emotes. This is how we got our emotes back here. Very simple little... There was a two-player door. This next one was a two-player door. You can see our cape meter up there at the top was the diamond thing. My empty emotes. I have a few emotes. My first playthrough. And here we can go on to Prairie, the main part of Prairie. So this was Prairie, right after you came out of Isle, the Isle transition. So you took the boats from Isle to Prairie, and you came out the cleft in the gap in the wall, the crack in the wall right there that you can see. And I think I'm going to end up going down there. I have no candles. I'm half wondering if that was my future friend Ariel there, because she always wore the pink cape in that hairstyle. You can see the other players are very, very dark. Apparently I already have this emote, so I don't need it. I spent a lot of time just standing around at this point because I was very confused new player. Here I'm going to go back to the previous area where you came, where the boats dropped you off. Like I said, I'm sad that I didn't know how to go back to Isle and watch the whole thing. But see, no transition here. This was where you were dropped off and got your cape. And what you missed, because I didn't record my first, was how confused I was. I had no idea how I got my cape and how I moved on here. It was very weird. It took me a bit before I realized how I was supposed to get my cape. So I was one of those newbies who was just clueless, just totally clueless. As you can see, I am totally clueless how to move around. Now the controls were very clunky, wonky. I mean, a lot worse than they are now. The controls were really, really strange, and it took a bit. Understanding you did use the butterflies was another thing that, came with time. And then this got you up there, and that was it. So I didn't really give you a good view. But this was the scene that was just so this said sky, this scene here of moving through this, into this area was just one of those iconic images from the early previews. So they put what they have in there now in there, I think, just as kind of a way of getting that scene in there again, even though it's not quite the same. Here I am helping somebody who needs help. The players were just so dark. Another pink cape. The pink cape, there's a little bit of a story with that, is that very, very shortly prior to this, like I said, this was about 6 weeks into the beta, my first day, but about 6 weeks in. And prior to this, somewhere, the pink cape was out of bounds in Vault because it was between Vault and Eden or Storm, and there was no Eden yet. So you had the doorway from Vault, but it was blocked and you couldn't get out of it unless you glitched. So people were glitching out, and so the pink cape was almost a sign of your adventuring. You know, you were able to glitch out and get the pink cape. So it was worn by some people as just that sign of ha ha ha, I got something you're not supposed to get. So I think a lot of people had it from that. But at this point where I'm playing, Storm is in the game, Eden is in the game, and you can actually get it legitimately. But it was kind of a sign of a badge of honor kind of thing. And here we are going on to Prairie now. Very similar little cloud tunnel, but you're going to see a very different scene than you're used to seeing. Here's Prairie. And there's our little pink-caped friend, and here's one of the emotes. I think this was the wave emote. Again, since I already have it, I don't have any candles still. Ring the bells. And now there's some two-player doors, two-person doors here to open for, and this was the easy one to glitch around because there's a hole at the top of it you could just walk down. But as a newbie, I don't know this, so people have to help me. Like I said, this is my first day playing. And trust me, what was going through my mind at this moment was, I hate games that I cannot complete without another person. Our familiar no skip on the bell tower scenes. These have hardly changed. That was our old Prairie. You can see the pieces that became the other parts of Prairie, the broken towers, the villages is this main area, broken towers, and then the fields and caves were added much later. See, nobody to help me. And yeah, I'm not a happy camper at this point because I don't like feeling like I absolutely need another person in order to progress in a game. Like I said, controls were very wonky. And this was a lot of flicking. Flick, 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 flick. And then figuring out the camera and everything else. There was not the D-pad. There was not the hula hoop. There was not a controller. There was none of that. This was very, very clunky controls. So part of it is my ineptness, but part of it is very bad controls. Because you can see I'm flicking, but I'm not going anywhere. So yeah, very wonky controls. That's already lit. Very wonky controls. Because you can see the arrow on my screen showing that I'm trying to move, but I'm not having a lot of luck. So there's one of the towers that had the one of the emotes as well. Not sweat. Sweat, white brow was somewhere else. This one was, if I don't remember now. This is so long ago. Over that way is the 8 gate. What you have is the 8 gate now. That was a hole, and underneath that is the sweat white brow emote, which the boat took you to over in the distance there. So the boat had to take you to the white brow emote in the doorway because that's the only way the doorway would open is if you had the boat. Oops, Manta caught me and is taking me to the temple. The bird call was down below where we are. If it went down to the right, bird call would be down there. And all the other prairie emotes, I'm pretty sure, are the same. You had laugh, I believe, was in the 8 gate area room, which is also a 2-player door. Butterfly catcher was right there where that 2-player door I couldn't get. Yawn might have been the guy at the broken tower. It's been a long time since this. But that's what our prairie used to look like. Oh, flying was just murder. I can tell I'm having trouble with the controls. Fly back down to one of the bell towers with the boat, and this will have this is where in there was, no, that was Yawn, just like it is now. This is a 4-player. One was a stance. This was a stance. Yawn was the bell tower, or the broken tower. This was a stance. This was like the hands on hip stance, only it was misnamed. This was a stance. Now it's Yawn, or in this area. It's a 2-person door now. In beta, it was really hard to get people collectively here, especially early on in this beta, at this point in beta. Very hard to get, just randomly get 4 people. But the nice thing was Prairie was all one piece, so everybody had to come through. Everybody came through it, and so you could eventually, if you waited long enough, get people to these. And a lot of times people would sit there and chirp like she is, and you'd get enough people. I remember ran into this one person many, many, many times here because we just happened to be going through, and we'd always help each other. We were always the ones helping everybody. And there were a lot of people who did that, but it would just always seem to be the same person come help, and that was it. Okay, so we didn't get any help there, so I'm just going to kind of move on here. You can see the broken towers, which are now part of the bird's nest area, the nest area. We have all these little boat dock things. No boat back here. This is the back behind it, that 4-door we were at. There actually was, of course, ways to glitch into everything. People have had ways to glitch under this map and into this room. Always ways to do that. You can see when I take off here, my flying looks really wonky, and it wasn't all me. It was just the controls were fairly difficult. Okay, so we're going to go over the broken towers, and there is an emote there, and then one of the bell towers, and then over that way is where the 8-gate was. And this is gone completely now, but the emote was down in that doorway there, and the very top is where you came out of the 8-gate. So when you came out of the 8-gate area, you came in back into this area up there. Unfortunately, obviously, I didn't have people in here to help me, and so it just controls all over the place. And part of it was me. Part of this was me. I just did not know how to control the character. You also didn't get a lot of hand-holding on the tutorial at this time. There was not much tutorial at all. And back to our first island we came into. Oof. And there's a temple up there. I was just trying to fly. Also, very little wing power. You can see the wing meter up there. I didn't have a lot of flight power at this time. Watching myself, it seems like, wow, was I really this bad? But I really think it was the controls that were this bad at this time. Again, this is a game that had been in beta for just a few weeks. In public beta anywhere, as public as it was. I think it started in January. Oof. Trying to get my feet under me, oh my God. And I can't remember how well the camera was either, like moving camera to see where you were going, which might also be why I was having so much trouble moving around here. You know, keeping in mind also, I don't play a lot of video games, and touchscreen video games are not something I did a lot of. Here's this emote, and I had trouble getting up to the top. You had to get up there to activate the rest of the emote and actually collect it, and I had some trouble, so I'm just going to skip that. So that's the chat boat there on the right. The other boat wasn't there, it didn't look like. I didn't see it. That second boat is the one that you now see the clock at. It used to signify you used to only be able to get that emote every other day. So here I'm getting stolen by a manta. Actually, not stolen. I think I was intending to do that. You can see the pattern on my cape. That's the old pattern, old cape patterns. So I'm 1/3 of the way to my look here. I actually remember that even after I got the chibi mask, I hardly ever used it because there were so many bugs with using the chibi mask. No winged light to collect in this. We only collected emotes. So candles and emotes is all you collected. And inside the Prairie Temple has not changed a whole lot. It still looks pretty much the same. Oop. You couldn't go back out. You can go back out now. You couldn't go back out then. This was before smiley candles and the little space down below behind there. So that wasn't here yet. But this is pretty much our... I didn't quite understand the whole wing meter thing either at this time and how that was all working. But you'll recognize this next scene. This is one of the scenes that has not changed. They added the little bit where the spirit goes to the sky, but this scene itself, I'm pretty sure hasn't changed at all, and I think it's the only one that hasn't. Now I've got to remember, does it still look like this? No, okay, it's very, very similar, but it's not exactly the same. I so rarely watch the cutscenes anymore. This is not, I don't think this is in there anymore, but anyway, she'll have to watch this again and see if this is how similar this actually is. Oh, I love those capes. And so on down to Forest, which is also a familiar view. And what I'm going to show, besides my really horrible flying, is where we actually had Cape Chaos. I do remember spending some time in Prairie, early days, and just trying to learn to fly. I just sat there and just tried to there's a bonk, tried to learn to fly because I was having so much trouble with controlling it that I just sat there and I'm just gonna practice flying. So some of this was definitely me. I just had no concept of the controls. And then the controls are probably the thing they changed. One of the things they just changed and changed and changed, trying to get something that worked well. So now you can see this is where our Cape kiosks, or our cosmetic kiosks down here. There's a home shrine, which you sit at to go home. And then there's little kiosks. I didn't go to them, but I did go to the home shrine. And that is all for my little Prairie visit here. I will continue this with another level. Thanks for watching.